Back to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam, and we're going to press on with our study of chapter 8, because we're almost up to chapter 9. Chapter 9 is just here. We've got just a little bit to go. None of it too difficult, too tiresome or toilsome. So we're going to get stuck into this, and we're going to actually just quickly reread over some of this stuff, just in case anyone's taken a break from the lessons. It's hard to predict on my end whether people are just going to power through the lessons, or they're going to take a week between them, a month between them, or stop and then come back. I can't predict that. Those things are contingent. So now and then, if I think something's a little bit important, I might just reread over it. So, and yoigar diam fispetusi peridon toiudon digaosune mengar digaosunes upanon fasi dain legestai malon kaeton. So here I want to just pause here. Okay, so there are some who argue and dispute whether concerning these things, such as whether justice mengar, like dikaosune is in the genitive case there, a comparative genitive, like one justice, whether one justice is more or less than another justice, okay? Whether, which translates idiomatically to whether justice or any other such thing admits of degrees, right? Upanufasi, right? Like, this is a big deal in his time. I'll tell you why. If I'm not mistaken, I reckon this is a case of how do you spell it? How do you pronounce it? Litotes or litotes or something? Let me try and type this out without ruining, without freezing the program. There we go. Right, litotes, right? It's a figure of speech. Only reason why I'm bringing that up, because here in Australia, we use it all the time, like literally all the time. It's in all of our speech. When like, should we? She's all right. Like if one of my best mates got a girlfriend and she was good looking, they'd say like, yeah, she's not half bad, and that means yeah, she's 10 out of 10. Or if someone says something completely correct, right? They would say, oh, he's not wrong, which means he's entirely correct. He's not wrong, he's entirely correct. Upanu fasi, I reckon that's raising alarm bells. That's not alarm bells, but you know what I mean? That's litotes, right? I reckon this was a massive argument at the time. It really translates to like upanu fasi is like literally they don't quite say, right? They don't quite say right, that it admits of that, but they don't quite say. It's like saying they outright deny it. There are people outright denying that these fixed things have admitted degrees, and you know what? They're actually quite correct. They don't. The abstraction of justice, all right, the abstraction of justice or charity or courage, okay, has a set definition. Does it not? Can we all not look up definitions in our different dictionaries of courage and loyalty and all these things, and justice, of course, and find a fixed definition? And the definitions are equivalent across nations and cultures, right? These men are showing it here. To be in the foray, okay, even though you're afraid, to be there, shoulder to shoulder with these people who you've marched with for 6, I don't know, like how many months was it again? I was like, it was less than a year, I felt like, that it took him to march to Babylon. Xenophon did it pretty quick. So you would have developed a bond, and you're courageous and you're with them, and that definition applies to you, but the degree to which you can be courageous in reality differs. Okay, so maybe this man is less courageous than this man here, right? He's going to launch himself in there. These guys are flinging projectiles, okay, standing back and just shooting in. And, you know, this guy's just about to launch himself into the melee properly. This guy too. So maybe they have more courage than the archers. But it's hard to tell. You know, I'm just making things up. I'm not saying all archers are less courageous than all axemen. That is not the case. But I'm saying that some cases of courage are less courageous than others. All right? And because that's where courage can get you sometimes. And yeah, so I hope that's made that clear. So they were correct, and Aristotle's also correct that, you know, he's going on about it does emit of degrees. Because the actual action itself that, or the, let's just say the action for now. The action that that was just, that was courageous and whatnot, is the thing that can emit of degrees. All right, so, you know, he's going out against 3-to-1 odds. You know, they're outnumbered. They've got good quality troops, and she's worried about the quantity. He's confident in the quality. So, you know, when he says "upanu fasi," like there was a heated debate at the time about this, and I reckon the reason why it was so heated is because they both had the truth. All right, they just couldn't connect the truth together. And fit it together properly. It's easy for us to retrospectively see how the pieces fit together, but not so much at the time when education wasn't so linear, streamlined. So I hope I've cleared all that up and I can move on now. Ude hugiayan hugiayas eton mentoye kain heteron heteru hugiain kai digosunain. So the same thing, you know, he's giving examples here of is one healthy, one health, more or less health than another health? Abstraction, no, because there's a fixed definition that captures its essence, what the essence of what it means to be healthy, right? You fit it or you don't, is what he's saying here, and what other people are arguing about, what they upanu fasi peri, and I think we've made that clear. We don't need to go into it too much. However, some people in reality can just be healthier than another person, right? So, and that's what he's saying here. Heiton mentoi ekain heteron heteru, the one to the other, kugiayan health, right? So, however, having that which we're talking about, one to the other health. So, in an English translation, proper English translation, you could say one person can have health to a greater or lesser degree than another. Right? Kai digrosune, same with justice. Heteron heteru, right? The one to the other, you can be more just. Okay, so yeah, I don't think I need to explain that too much. I think we've covered that. Hos autos te kai grammatike, the same way for grammatical. Okay, kai tasalas diathesais. So it's interesting how he puts grammar not so much in episteme as we would expect, but in diathesais. It is a disposition that turns into a habit. These sorts of sciences that we learn, and that might be just an important point to conjure up a little bit into our mind. So, for example, if I can find someone studying, let's do this guy. You know, sailing has its own science to it, navigation and all sorts of different things. Taking the azimuth, for example, or just cartography. But anyway, you get the point that it is first a disposition that you do now and then, and you craft, and it becomes a habit that you're doing cartography and navigation. And in that, throughout that process, you gain the knowledge. Okay, so being grammatical is the same thing. You know, a child, when they go to school, has the disposition of being grammatical when they're in the lesson, and eventually that most likely will become a habit to be grammatical, to study grammar, to be a grammarian, right? Is being a grammarian is a disposition that has become a habit. Being a sailor is a disposition that has become a habit. Okay, being an explorer is a disposition that has become a habit. Because in exploration, it's much the same skills as navigation. Okay, much the same, but not exactly. Knowing how to fight from horseback, okay, is a skill and is an art and a science. Same thing. Okay, so let's press on. Das alles diathesis. Alun tage kata tautas legomena anam fispetetos epideketai to malon kaitoheton. Okay, so when we speak of these things, therefore, we should be keenly aware that they can admit of the more and the less. Okay, for example, grammatikoteros, gar heteros heteru legetai. So you can become more grammatical than the other. It's not a fixed state, which I think we've made pretty clear so far. It's not a fixed state. Your level of understanding of any sort of intellectual pursuit. All right, so we might hit plateaus, and we all know what that feels like. If we've been a plateau in something for a month or a year, whatever, it can cause despondence. However, we can become more so, and less so, of course. It implies we can become less so, but something can become more grammatical, the one to the other. All right, and for example, in schools, we get test results back and marks on our test, quiz, assessments, whatever it is, and you figure out who is more grammatical, grammatikoteros, than the other, heteros, heteru. It's a teacher's job to figure that out and figure out who needs help and who needs more work, more difficult work, I should say. So yeah, that's completely normal and understandable. Kai hugiai noteros, right? And a doctor is going to see people who are more healthy than another. Kai dikai oteros, and one police officer will be more just than another, one judge will be more just than another. Kai epiton alon hasautos, right? And the same goes for all other such things. All right, so let's proceed with an interesting one here. Trigonon, right? De kai tetragonon. So the triangle and the square, right? We'll pause it here, actually, this lesson. There's a full stop here. It's been going on for a while. So just to recap, because we've covered a lot of ground quite quickly too, just to recap, these qualities that we speak of admit of degrees, okay? Qualities admit of degrees. So far, what we've covered, the qualities that we've covered admit of degrees, okay? So it can become more or less, and it can become more or less throughout time, all right? So throughout time, time allows for this change, okay? So just to make that clear. And but the abstraction does not admit of degrees. The abstraction remains one simple thing, defined. It has like a nature to it. It can be found in a dictionary, can be articulated. There can be debate about how it exactly should be articulated, and the languages can differ, and these things, but it's understandable universally. Okay, it's understandable universally. So, for example, let's find something here. What can we? Curiosity is understandable throughout things, and curiosity is a habit. Okay, curiosity is a habit. I think I've spoken about this before. Curiosity can also be a sin. It can be a virtue or a sin, depending on who you are as a person. But curiosity is understandable throughout different cultures, of course. what would be a habit here? Obedience is understandable across cultures, right? It has a definition, and obedience and discipline are habits, okay, and dispositions as well. One last one, faith. All right, to have the faith to pursue the star represents a disposition, of course, but also a habit, theological virtue. And if you're wondering what theological virtue is, it means that you can't have that virtue without God's grace. So it's not something that's just conjured up by human will and desire alone, or by accident. It is a God-given gift. So that is why they call it a theological virtue, and it leads to a life of closer to God as well. So, and the same would go here. Faith and hope, especially after such a event, ending up on the mountaintops of Ararat, and in such cramped and confined conditions, noisy, who knows what it'd smell like in there, and they come out and everything's supposed to be all fine and dandy. So that is a case of faith and hope. So I think we've made that clear enough, all this, and why this is important. Well, it's important because it explains a lot of biblical stories, of course, in the Pentateuch. You might wonder why God would favor one more than the other, especially Cain and Abel. I wish I had an artwork of Cain and Abel. Let's end the lesson on this point. Some people say, oh, it's unjust. Cain and Abel, they both brought a sacrifice. They both showed piety. Yes, but what did we just learn? Right? That it is true that these habits and dispositions can become more so across time, or less so, and more so and less so compared one to the other. Heteros heterou. Right? So you can both sacrifice something, but someone can sacrifice it to a higher degree. And the story of Cain and Abel just goes to show this logical rule. Okay, it goes to show this logical rule and explain it, that God isn't unjust. That God is teaching a lesson about what sacrifice is proper and what sacrifice is not. All right, a proper sacrifice is one that is proportionate with the object of the sacrifice. So like, if you've got a neighbor that you don't really like, you might sacrifice 10 minutes of your time helping them with some minor issue. Okay, that's a proper sacrifice, really. If you've got a best friend who's moving home, you might take the whole day off work to help them move their furniture and pack up their stuff. It's a proper sacrifice. Okay, so this logical rule that we're learning here, and this like explanation of language, is related to all sorts of ethical behaviors, of course, biblical stories, and also sort of like justice in general. So I'll leave it there. That's a good place to end. As always, si semper fortis in opere tuo. My name is Liam, and I'll see you next time.